There is something sitting inside you right now. You might not be thinking about it consciously, but it is there. A person you have not fully forgiven. A version of your life that did not happen the way you planned. A relationship that ended and still somehow has not ended. Not inside you. A job you lost. A mistake you made 3, 5, 10 years ago that you still replay when the room goes quiet. You carry it, and the carrying is so familiar by now that you have almost stopped noticing the weight. We all do this. Every single one of us. We hold on to things long after they have stopped giving us anything, not because we want to suffer, but because somewhere deep in our minds, holding on feels like the only way to keep something real. Like letting go means it never mattered. Like moving on means we have abandoned something that deserved to stay. Here is what that costs you. It costs you energy you could be pouring into what is in front of you. It costs you presence. It costs you peace. And in some cases, it is quietly costing you your health, your sleep, your joy, and the quality of every relationship you currently have. This audiobook is about ending that cost. Not by forgetting, not by pretending, but by learning the only skill that makes genuine freedom possible, the art of letting go. I want to speak to you honestly before we begin, because I know who you are. Not specifically, but I know what brought you here. You are someone who feels deeply, someone who has invested in people, in dreams, in a version of your future that you believed in completely. And somewhere along the way, something did not go the way it was supposed to. And instead of releasing it, you kept it close. Maybe it was a betrayal. Maybe it was a loss. Maybe it was your own choice, a decision you made that you are still paying for in guilt and regret. Whatever it is, you are carrying something today that you did not carry 5 years ago. And part of you is exhausted. This audiobook is going to give you something specific and real. By the time we reach the final chapter, you will understand exactly why your mind holds on, the actual psychological mechanism behind it. You will understand the difference between processing pain and being imprisoned by it. You will have a set of practical tools you can begin using today. And you will feel something shift, not because of inspiration, but because understanding alone has the power to loosen what grip has tightened around you. Here is what this audiobook is not. It is not telling you to simply move on. It is not going to suggest that your pain is a mindset problem you can fix by thinking positively. It is not going to minimize what you have been through. What happened to you is real. What you lost was real. And any approach to letting go that skips past that truth is not worthy of your time. What we are going to do instead is go deeper. We are going to look at what holding on is actually protecting you from, and then we're going to walk, step by step, through the process of setting it down. Not all at once, not painlessly, but genuinely and permanently. You are in exactly the right place to begin. Let us walk through this together. Chapter 1: Why We Hold On. The hidden logic of letting go. Picture a moment from your past. Not the worst one, just one that still has a small pull on you. Maybe it is a conversation that went wrong. Maybe it is a relationship that faded before you were ready. Maybe it is a version of your life you imagined, the promotion, the house, the future, that did not arrive. When you picture it, notice what happens in your body. A small tightening, a flicker of something. That is not a flaw in your character. That is your mind doing exactly what it was designed to do. We are all built this way. The human brain is a pattern-seeking, loss-averse, meaning-making machine. Holding on is not weakness. It is biology. Here is what I have come to understand about why we hold on and why it matters so deeply. The psychologist and Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying how the human mind processes loss. What he found is one of the most important discoveries in modern psychology. We feel losses approximately twice as powerfully as we feel equivalent gains. The brain registers losing something as a threat, and when the brain perceives a threat, it fixates. It replays. It clenches, not to punish you, but to protect you from losing again. The problem is that the brain cannot always distinguish between a threat that is still present and one that is already in the past. So it keeps you locked in a defensive posture against something that no longer exists. You are standing guard over an empty room. Consider what that means for your daily life. When you replay a painful conversation from 2 years ago, your nervous system responds as though it is happening now. The stress hormones are real. The emotional weight is real. Your body is paying a physical price for something that exists only in memory. The first thing you need to understand, really understand, not just intellectually agree with, is that holding on is not a sign of how much something mattered. It is a sign that your mind has not yet received the signal that the threat is over. Your job is to give it that signal. There is a practice for this. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to do one specific thing. Take out a piece of paper and write down one sentence. What you are still carrying and what threat your mind believes it is protecting you from by holding on. Not to solve it, just to name it. Because naming it pulls it out of the unconscious and into the light. And things lose power in the light. You have been holding on because your mind believed it was keeping you safe. Now we're going to teach it that safety no longer requires the weight. Chapter 2. The grief you were never taught to feel. Think about the last time something genuinely ended. Not just changed, ended. A friendship that faded. A career path you closed the door on. A relationship you walked away from, or that walked away from you. Think about how you handled it. Did you let yourself grieve? Or did you do what most of us do? Stay busy, stay logical, tell yourself you are fine, and quietly carry the unprocessed feeling forward into everything that came next? We are never really taught how to grieve. And I do not mean only the grief that follows death. I mean the everyday grief of endings, the small losses and large ones that accumulate across a lifetime. The job that was not renewed. The friendship that grew cold. The dream you eventually stopped chasing. These are real losses, and they require real grief. But most of us were raised in cultures that reward getting back up quickly and punish lingering in pain. Here is what I have come to understand about the grief we skip. The Swiss psychiatrist Elisabeth Kubler-Ross spent her life working with people facing profound loss and distilled that experience into one of the most important frameworks in modern psychology. What her work revealed, and what the decades of research that followed confirmed, is that grief is not a problem to be solved. It is a process to be moved through. And when we interrupt that process by pushing past it too quickly, the grief does not disappear. It goes underground, and underground it runs things. Think about the person who ends a relationship and immediately throws themselves into work or dating again. Think about the professional who loses a role they loved and reframes it as fine before they have had one honest conversation with themselves about the loss. On the surface, they look like they have handled it, but watch them closely over the following months. Watch the irritability, the disconnection, the way certain conversations trigger something disproportionate. That is unprocessed grief working from underneath. You may have losses in your past that you never properly grieved. Not because you are broken, but because no one showed you how. Here is something specific you can do this week. Sit with one ending you have never fully acknowledged and give yourself exactly 20 minutes to feel it without redirecting.
No fixing. No reframing.
No reminding yourself of silver linings. Just feeling. Set a timer. Let what needs to surface, surface. This is not wallowing. This is completing the process your mind started and never finished. It takes courage, and it is one of the most powerful things you will ever do for yourself. Grief is not the opposite of moving on. It is the path toward it. Chapter 3: Identity, Attachment, and the Stories We Refuse to Release. There is something in your past that you are holding on to, and part of the reason you cannot let it go is not the event itself. It is what the event means about who you are. This is the part of holding on that almost no one talks about. We do not just attach to experiences. We attach to the story the experience tells us about ourselves. We are all doing this. Every single one of us has constructed an identity partly from what has happened to us. The wounds, the victories, the things we survived, the things that broke us. And that identity feels like truth. It feels like the most real version of ourselves. But identity and truth are not always the same thing. Here is what I have come to understand. The psychologist Carol Dweck, who spent decades researching how people develop their sense of self and capability, found something remarkable. People who attach their identity to fixed narratives, I am someone this happened to, I am someone who was treated this way, tend to remain stuck at the point where the narrative formed. But people who hold their story with more flexibility, this happened, and I am still becoming, continue to grow past it. The difference is not intelligence or willpower. It is the story you are telling, and whether you have made that story your permanent address. Consider Nelson Mandela. 27 years in prison. 27 years during which most people, in his position, would have made that imprisonment the defining story of their lives. The story of injustice. The story of what was taken. And no one would have blamed him. Instead, Mandela walked out of Robben Island and chose a different story, not one that denied the injustice, but one that refused to be defined by it. He let go of the identity of a victim not because the victimization was not real, but because he understood that carrying that identity would prevent him from becoming who he needed to be. Think about the story you have been living from. Is there a wound in your past that has quietly become a part of how you introduce yourself to the world? Not in words, but in the way you hold yourself, the expectations you carry, the chances you do not take? The question is not whether the wound is real. The question is whether you have made it your permanent identity. Here is a specific practice. Write down one belief about yourself that you have been carrying since a difficult experience. Something like, I am not the kind of person who gets chosen, or I always end up abandoned, or I am someone who makes the wrong decisions. Then write this directly below it. This was what that experience taught me to believe.
It is not a law.
It is a lesson I can now revise. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Drop your answer in the comments right now. What is one story from your past that you have been carrying as a permanent identity when it was really just a moment in time? I read every comment, and your answer might shape the next audiobook we create together. The stories we tell about ourselves are the walls we live inside, and walls can be rebuilt. Chapter 4: Forgiveness is not what you think it is. There is a person in your life, maybe from your past, maybe still present, who has done something that genuinely hurt you. And when you hear the word forgiveness, something in you resists. Not because you are hard-hearted, but because somewhere along the way you were taught that forgiveness means telling that person what they did was acceptable, that it means minimizing your pain, that it means letting someone off the hook for something they may have never apologized for and never will. I want to dismantle that completely, because that understanding of forgiveness is one of the most damaging ideas we carry, and it is keeping millions of people imprisoned by events that may be years or decades old. Here is what I have come to understand about what forgiveness actually is. The researcher and author Dr. Fred Luskin at Stanford University spent years studying forgiveness, not as a spiritual concept, but as a measurable psychological and physiological process. What is research found is this: forgiveness is not for the person who hurt you. It is for you. It is the decision to stop allowing someone who has already cost you something to continue costing you your present moment, your health, and your peace. Unforgiveness is not neutral. It is physiologically expensive. Chronic resentment has been linked to elevated cortisol levels, disrupted sleep, suppressed immune function, and significantly higher rates of anxiety and depression. Holding a grievance is not a way of making someone pay. It is a way of paying yourself again and again for something that has already happened. Consider Maya Angelou. She spoke openly in her life about enduring profound trauma and injustice. And yet, she became one of the most luminous presences in American literature. She did not forgive the people who harmed her because they deserved it. She forgave them because she understood that carrying hatred would poison the vessel that held her gifts. Her words on this were clear and direct. She chose to forgive not to excuse harm, but to free herself from being controlled by it. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. You do not have to invite someone back into your life. You do not have to speak to them. You do not have to approve of what they did. Forgiveness is an internal act. It is the decision to withdraw your energy from the ongoing prosecution of someone in the courtroom of your own mind. Here is a specific practice. Write the name of the person you are holding a grievance against. Then write down what continuing to carry this grievance is currently costing you in mental energy, emotional peace, physical tension, and presence. Be specific. Because when you see the real cost clearly, the case for forgiveness becomes about you, and suddenly it becomes a lot more compelling. Forgiveness is not releasing the person who hurt you. It is releasing yourself. Chapter 5. The past that lives in your body. You have probably had this experience. Something triggers you, a tone of voice, a phrase, a smell, a situation, and your reaction is bigger than the situation warrants. You feel it before you think it. Your chest tightens. Your jaw clamps. Something rises in you that feels older than the current moment. And afterwards, you are not entirely sure why you reacted the way you did. That is not a mental problem. That is a body memory. We all store emotional experience in the body. This is not metaphor, it is neuroscience. And understanding it may be the most important thing you learn in this entire audiobook. Here is what I have come to understand. The psychiatrist and trauma researcher Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, in one of the most groundbreaking bodies of work in modern medicine, demonstrated that traumatic and unresolved emotional experiences do not simply live in memory. They become encoded in the nervous system. The body keeps a record, and it plays that record back through physical sensation, automatic reactions, and the way we hold our posture, our breath, our tension, and our guard. This means that intellectual understanding alone is often not enough to release the past. You can understand on a cognitive level that a relationship is over. You can know, logically, that a past failure does not define you. But if your body has not released the pattern, you will keep flinching at the shadow of things that are no longer there. Consider how this shows up in your daily life. The way your shoulders rise when a conversation moves in a certain direction. The way your breathing shallows in situations that remind you, below the level of conscious thought, of something from your past. The way you shut down or over-explain or leave the room, not because the present situation demands it, but because your body is responding to an older script. Here is a specific practice you can begin using today. When you notice a disproportionate emotional reaction, anything that feels bigger than the current moment justifies, pause and place one hand on your chest. Take 3 slow breaths. Then ask yourself, what is the age of this feeling? Not the current situation, the feeling itself. Often you will notice that the emotion is much older than the trigger. That recognition alone begins to separate the past from the present. And that separation is where healing lies. The letting go that lasts happens not just in the mind, but in the body. Both need to be given permission to release. Chapter 6. What you are afraid letting go will cost you. There is something underneath the holding on that we have not talked about yet. And it might be the most honest part of this entire audiobook. Because for most people, the real reason they cannot let go is not the pain of the past. It is the fear of what letting go will mean. Think about it honestly. If you let go of the anger you carry towards someone who wronged you, what are you afraid that will mean? That they won, that you are soft, that the injustice goes unacknowledged. If you let go of a dream that did not happen, what are you afraid that will mean? That it was your fault, that you are giving up, that you are admitting defeat. If you let go of a version of your life you planned, what are you afraid that will mean? That you are settling, that hope is foolish, that something in you was not worthy of what you wanted. These fears are real, and they deserve to be spoken plainly. Here is what I have come to understand. The researcher Brené Brown, whose work on vulnerability and courage has shifted the way millions of people understand their emotional lives, found that the thing most people are most afraid of is not the hard emotion itself. It is what they believe the emotion says about them. We do not fear grief. We fear what it means about us if we grieve. We do not fear letting go. We fear what letting go makes us. The person who holds on to anger at someone who wronged them is often not holding on to the anger itself. They are using the anger as evidence. Evidence that what happened was wrong. Evidence that they deserved better. Evidence that the pain was real. And releasing the anger feels like destroying the evidence. Consider Viktor Frankl, a man who lost nearly everything in the Nazi concentration camps and yet emerged with a philosophy of radical inner freedom. He did not let go of the truth of what happened to him. He did not let go of the memory or the meaning. What he let go of was the need to be defined and driven by it. He understood that holding on to suffering as proof of injustice does not undo the injustice. It only extends the sentence. Here is the shift I want to offer you. Letting go does not mean the pain was not real. It does not mean what happened to you was acceptable. It does not mean the dream was foolish or the hope was naive. It means you are choosing to take the lessons and leave the weight. You can honor what you went through without being governed by it. If what you are hearing is already shifting something inside you, subscribe to this channel right now and hit the notification bell, because the next audiobook goes even deeper into the power of building unshakable confidence from the inside out. You do not want to miss it. Letting go is not surrender. It is the most powerful choice you will ever make. Chapter 7. Releasing Regret. The weight of the road not taken. There is a version of your life that you did not live. The decision you made differently in your mind 100 times since. The chance you did not take. The person you did not choose or did not choose you. The year you lost to fear or circumstance or simply the wrong timing. You know the one. And sometimes when things are quiet, you live there for a while. Regret is one of the heaviest things we carry. And it is uniquely cruel because unlike grief over a loss that came from outside us, regret is the grief we carry for choices we believe we made ourselves. We all carry some version of this. The psychologist Daniel Gilbert at Harvard has spent decades studying what he calls the psychological immune system, the mind's ability to adapt to outcomes we did not want. And what his research reveals is both humbling and liberating. People consistently and dramatically overestimate how bad they will feel about bad outcomes and how good they will feel about good ones. We are, in other words, terrible at predicting our own emotional futures. The road we did not take has no potholes in our imagination. The life we did not live has no bad days. And we compare the reality of the life we are in with all its difficulty and complexity to the fantasy of the alternative. That comparison is not fair, and it is quietly destroying your relationship with the life that is actually in front of you. Here, Chapter 8, Decluttering Your Inner World, the practice of conscious release. You know what it feels like to walk into a room that is cluttered. The low-grade irritation, the sense of something unresolved, the way your eyes can never quite settle. And you know what it feels like to walk into a room that has been cleared, where everything in it is there because it belongs there, and everything that did not belong has been removed. There is a quality of breath in that room, a quality of possibility. Your inner world is a room. And for most people, it has been accumulating for years without a clear out. We all collect emotional clutter the same way we collect physical clutter, not all at once, and never intentionally. A grievance here, an unresolved conversation there, an expectation we held that quietly calcified into resentment when it was not met. A comparison we started making one afternoon that became a permanent measuring stick. None of these feel like much on their own, but together they fill the room. Here is what I have come to understand about the practice of deliberate inner clearing. The Japanese organizing consultant Marie Kondo, whose approach to physical decluttering became a global phenomenon, offers a principle that translates with surprising precision to emotional life. She asks not what to discard, but what to keep. She asks, does this bring me something that serves my life today? Not whether it was once useful, or whether it cost something, or whether someone important gave it to you. Does it serve your life today? Apply that question to what you are carrying. The resentment you have been holding. Does it serve your life today? The version of yourself you have been criticizing for years. Does that criticism serve your life today? The relationship you ended that you keep reopening in your mind. Does reopening it serve your life today? Consider Stephen Covey, who in his work on principle-centered living made a distinction that changed how I think about attention and energy. He described the difference between what we can control and what we can only be concerned about. And his counsel was consistent. Spend your energy where you have actual influence. The past is entirely outside your circle of control. Reviewing it, relitigating it, replaying it. These are all acts of spending energy in a place where you have no power. Here is your specific practice. Identify one thing you are mentally returning to regularly, a conversation, a situation, a person that you have no ability to change. Write it down. Then write this below it. I am releasing my energy from this because it requires nothing more from me. Read that sentence slowly. Then consciously redirect to one thing in your present life where your energy will actually produce something. Letting go is not passive. It is one of the most active choices a person can make. Chapter 9. Building a life you do not need to escape from. Here is a question I want you to sit with for a moment. If everything you are holding on to, every old story, every buried grievance, every unforgiven person, every unrealized version of your life, if all of it were released tomorrow, what would you do with your life? What would you pursue? What would you build? What would you allow yourself to want? For many people, this question is genuinely uncomfortable because the holding on has become a structure. The past has become a reason why certain things are not possible, why certain risks are not worth taking, why the version of life you actually want has to wait. And without it, there is an openness that feels more like exposure than freedom. We all use the past as shelter sometimes.
There is no shame in that.
But there is a cost. Here is what I have come to understand about building a life worth moving toward. The psychologist Martin Seligman, one of the founders of positive psychology, spent decades studying not just what causes suffering, but what enables genuine human flourishing. What his research consistently showed is that people thrive not when they are free from problems, but when they are in active pursuit of something that matters to them. The antidote to holding on to the past is not emptiness, it is direction. It is having something worth building with both hands. Consider Warren Buffett. One of the most quoted principles in his approach to investing is the idea of opportunity cost. Every dollar you put into one place is a dollar you cannot put somewhere else. He applies this with ruthless clarity. But here is what most people miss. He applies it not just to money, but to attention. Buffett has said clearly that he does not spend time thinking about past mistakes beyond extracting the lesson. The mental capital, in his words, is too valuable to waste on decisions that are already made. What are you not building because you are too busy managing what has already happened? What relationship, what career, what creative work, what version of yourself is waiting on the other side of the release? Here is your specific practice. Write down one thing you have been postponing, one genuine aspiration you have told yourself you will pursue once you have dealt with the past. Then write down one concrete step you could take toward it this week. Not when you are fully healed. Not when the past is fully processed.
Now.
Because the life you are building is the very thing that makes letting go feel worthwhile. If this audiobook is adding real value to your life, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with one person who needs to hear this today. You might not realize it, but that one share could genuinely change someone's life. The best response to the past is a future that renders it irrelevant. Chapter 10. The Closing Truth. You are already becoming free. Do you remember how we started? A quiet room. Something sitting inside you. A person.
A plan.
A version of your life that did not arrive. And the carrying that had become so familiar, you had almost stopped noticing the weight. I want to return there for a moment. Not to that pain, but to that person. The one who pressed play at the beginning of this audiobook. Think about what they were carrying that they may not have fully named. Think about how alone in it they may have felt. And then notice how much has shifted in your understanding since that first moment. Because something has shifted. I can say that with certainty, not because of what I have said, but because you stayed. You listened. You allowed yourself to sit inside these ideas instead of brushing past them. That is not a small thing. That is the beginning of a different life. Let me walk you through what we discovered together. We began by understanding why the mind holds on, not out of weakness, but out of a biological drive to protect us from the threat of loss. And we named that the first step toward freedom is giving your mind the signal that the threat has passed. We moved into the grief we were never taught to feel, the everyday endings that accumulate when we push past them too quickly, and we understood that feeling is not failure. It is completion. We looked at the stories we carry as permanent identity, the wounds that became walls, and we saw that those walls can be rebuilt with materials of our choosing. We dismantled the misunderstanding of forgiveness and revealed it for what it truly is, not a gift to the person who hurt you, but the act of withdrawing your energy from a prosecution that has been costing you everything. We felt the past that lives in the body, the reflexes and reactions that are older than the moments that trigger them, and we learned that healing happens not just in the mind, but in the nervous system. We looked honestly at what we fear letting go will cost us, and we saw that letting go does not destroy the evidence, it frees the witness. We sat with regret and the roads not taken, and found that every path, including the wrong ones, has been building something real. We cleared the inner room and reclaimed the energy spent in places where we have no power. And we looked at the life that is waiting, the one worth building with both hands, once they are finally free. I want to say this plainly. This journey is not linear. There will be days when you feel you have released something, and then it returns smaller, but still present. There will be moments when the old story feels more true than the new one. There will be people who will trigger what you thought you had healed, and reactions that surprise you with their force. That is not failure. That is the nature of deep change. It moves in spirals, not straight lines. The difference between today and a year from now is not that you will never feel the old weight. It is that you will carry it for shorter and shorter periods before remembering that you have a choice. Here are the principles I want to leave with you. Hold them somewhere you will see them.
You are not what happened to you.
You are what you choose to become in the space after it. Letting go is not losing. It is choosing where to invest your most finite resource, your present moment. Forgiveness is not a feeling. It is a decision you make on behalf of your future self. The grief you avoid today becomes the ceiling you live under tomorrow. Feel it, finish it, and rise. The life you are meant to build cannot be built with hands that are full of what needs to be put down. Picture yourself a year from now. Not perfect, not without difficulty, but lighter. Someone who wakes in the morning without the first thought going to the old wound. Someone who, when a familiar trigger appears, pauses and chooses rather than reacts. Someone who has stopped rehearsing the painful past and started writing a more honest future. Someone who looks at the people they love and is actually present with them, not half present, with the other half still back in a conversation or a year that ended long ago. That person exists. You are already in the process of becoming them. Not because this audiobook changed you, but because you chose to listen. And choosing to listen is the same muscle as choosing to let go. The art of letting go is not a one-time act. It is a practice, daily, gentle, and cumulative. It is the choice made again and again to carry only what belongs to your future and to set down, with care and without shame, everything that only belongs to your past. You have carried it long enough. It is time to put it down. If this audiobook gave you something real, subscribe to this channel and stay on this journey with me. The next audiobook goes even deeper into building unshakable confidence from the inside out. Share this with someone who needs it today. You might not realize it, but that one share could change the course of their life. And until next time, keep growing, keep choosing, keep becoming.